Hey everybody, this is Eddy Dacius. We're here with another episode, and we have a wonderful guest. And this is a professor from Fitchburg University and Fitchburg State University. And I think he's gonna tell us a lot about himself. His name is Josh Spero, and Josh will have this opportunity to tell us about his journey and advice to our audience. Before we go further on this episode is brought to you by Dacius Facility Management. Dacius Facility Management, they manage your property with a variety of your services. Call them now, 617-237-0106, or go online at www.daciusfm.com, daciusfm.com.
Do you want to maximize the value of your commercial property and achieve optimal productivity and efficiency in your day-to-day business operations? That's where Dacius Facilities Management can help. DFM offers Boston area businesses help in key areas like building and preventive maintenance, handyman services, project and vendor management, and even security consulting at competitive rates. Call Dacius Facilities Management now at 617-237-0106 or visit daciusfm.com today.
daciusfm.com. Like I said, this is Dacius FM. They sponsor this episode, and we have another sponsor. We're very happy to have them. This Day Design. They will help you with your website. This Day Design. Let's go. Yes, if you're looking for a website, This Day Design, Daryl will be the person to call, 857-241-9955. They will help you with your design, marketing. Please check them out, www.thisday.design. All right, so we here with Josh. Josh, how are you doing today?
Doing wonderfully, Eddie. It's great to join you today. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, so thank you for being here with us. We're excited. Like we said, we're always excited to have great guests coming in and tell us about their story. Let's start with Divine Purpose Podcast, which is a new episode with Josh Spero.
Welcome to the Divine Purpose Podcast, where we transport you along one of the more dynamic journeys of life. Have you ever been curious to know what it takes to become a successful leader? Or about knowing the secrets of life through the Bible? How about engaging in conversation where no topics are off limits? We will take you to new levels with guests who can help you grasp the importance of your calling. Now, here's your host, Eddy Dacius, founder of Dacius Facilities Management.
Yes, like we said, we have a special guest. This is Josh Spero. So, like if you're new to this channel or to this podcast or to this show, we like to ask like a simple question. Josh, what can you tell us about you?
Eddie, I teach international relations, as you said, at Fitchburg State University, Fitchburg, Massachusetts. I've always been, or at least I've tried to be for most of my life, a public servant, and I really enjoy serving communities larger than myself, which includes quite a few years working in the U.S. Government in Washington, D.C., in the metropolitan area before our family moved back here to Massachusetts. And now I serve at a public university, so I'm continuing my public service in higher education.
And we appreciate your service, and definitely this is a great journey. I'm looking at the path already. I have a lot of questions, so let's go about what are the three most challenging events in your life, and how do they challenge you?
Well, I would say that the three biggest challenges. One is just trying to be a a good person and a good husband and a good father. I have two wonderful sons, and I don't know if I'd say that. Well, I guess it is a challenge in a way. There are always challenges with family, but we have a loving, wonderful family, and so I guess I would say that that's the first challenge. The second would be just trying to do my best in the communities in which I serve, and as I said, I'm a public servant, so I love the challenges of serving communities larger than myself, where you're really trying to help other people so that they might help themselves.
Yes.
To feel that they're moving ahead, forging forward. And I guess the third challenge would be just looking at how to teach and to learn from others at the same time, and to keep the passion for life always with that high energy, but also be able to know that as you try to help others, you can depend on them as they depend on you, especially in your times of need.
Now, and thank you for sharing. And I think one thing is keep resonating is you're like a public servant, and this is what should be about. But let's go back to Josh Spero growing up, and what was his aspiration? So the way we like to ask this question is, what was your dream job in middle school, high school, college, and now? So if they are the same, great, but if there's transition, so what kind of influence those transition?
It's always a fun question to ask, a dream job. I guess I could say that I've actually been able to do the two dream jobs that I've wanted. One, which and I'm currently doing the second one, which is teaching. And I always did want to teach at a college or university level, and to be doing so at a public university where I've been for almost 20 years is wonderful. I thought I wanted to teach when I was younger, but I definitely wanted to go into public service, and I wanted to work for the government, and I wanted actually to go back to Washington, D.C., where I actually was born.
Wow.
Well, sadly, it's now a long time ago, but yeah, I'm coming up on my 60th birthday, 60 years. And when I was born, John F. Kennedy was president.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's that long ago. And I was born in Washington, D.C. because my parents, who at the time were both public servants, they had moved from New York City to Washington, D.C. because John F. Kennedy became president.
Okay.
And I can certainly talk to you about those early experiences of how I got that shaped me. But really, in a nutshell, even though I didn't have the chance to live in Washington, D.C. for very long, just about my first 6 months.
Okay.
Because then my dad was advised to go back to New York City because a lot of John F. Kennedy's legislation wasn't getting through Congress.
Okay.
So he went back to New York. But I returned there in 1987. Looking to work for the government. I had visited Washington a couple of times before then, but I really wanted to go to D.C. and I wanted to serve, in many ways, as a civilian public servant. I wanted to serve my country, but I also really wanted to work in the public world where you really are trying to help people. It's not about profit and making money, although certainly you know making money is important, and paying the bills, but I really wanted to be in public service. And so my dream jobs as a government planner and policymaker, as well as now a public university professor. I've achieved my 2 dream jobs.
And thank you for sharing. And hearing you, I'm like already forming all the questions in my head. So, growing up, you said parents or public servant, but what was the dynamic in the household? How was it? So, are you involved in sports? Are you just... Some people, sport wasn't an option. It was all about books or music. So what was it for you?
Well, it was all of those. Actually, I should say that, you know, when I look at role models, certainly my parents were role models, and they influenced me to this day, because my mother, who's 85, is still working full time as a public teacher. She now trains teachers and helps them get into the field. So she's been in that for over 60 years, and you know that kind of education push was right part of the family as we were growing up around the dinner table and talking about all the issues of the day. The reason we were in Washington was because my father left the private sector, went to work for the Kennedy administration, and ended up helping to create what became, in those days, they called it the domestic Peace Corps.
Okay.
Because the Peace Corps had already been created, but the domestic version of it across the country, well, today we refer to it as AmeriCorps.
AmeriCorps, yes.
And my dad worked with Robert Kennedy to help to create that. And growing up with these stories and discussions, and why it's important to help people. I should tell you that I always felt that I was very fortunate in that I could choose my path for what I wanted to do in my life, but I always was encouraged, certainly by my family, but also by friends and the communities around me. I love sports. I love music. I love education. And I actually, although I can't run nearly as far as I used to do. Around, I guess, the age of 13, I discovered that I really loved long distance running.
Wow.
And it gave me a really critical point in my life, because I could run, and I run with other people, in track and cross country. And I love to compete, but I just love to run because it allowed not only me to get really great exercise, and I could just go anywhere at any time and do it, as long as I had a decent pair of sneakers. But basically, it allowed me to think, and allowed me to decompress, and allowed me to work through all the challenges, especially of teenage years. But also, what did I want to do with my life, and how did I want to try to live it, and just really cherish the opportunities to go places like that. Just run.
Wow.
And meet people and see things, and just be able to be with communities. And it's pretty easy to get around when you're able to run.
No, definitely. So can you tell us what's your favorite childhood memory?
I guess there's a lot of them, but what I said a moment ago, I think really kind of gave me my navigation in life, which was family. And we talk a lot in the family, and so the dinner time around the table discussions that makes such a difference, because you feel that you're part of. I have a brother and a sister, and that you really feel that that's your foundation.
Yeah.
And from there you can experience so many things, which I've been fortunate to do. But I don't know if there's any one memory. Maybe, like I said, it's that moment when I decided to join that community in terms of running join the community in terms of faith communities, athletic communities, music communities. I played the trumpet when I was growing up, and so some of my heroes are the great trumpet players. It's just and music and education and faith and communities that it helps you, especially if you feel uncertain at times or you're feeling down and for whatever reasons. And that dinner table really was a reinforcement of values and just hope and determination.
And thank you. And like I said, we really appreciate our guest telling us, going in details and give us more insight. The question usually have a follow-up. So my follow-up is, how important those memories are for you, and what role did they play in your life now? That's the main question. So if you have a favorite memories, some people, they can't tell us, because there are so many. But that's the following question that I want to ask is, how important those memories are for you now and reflecting on them?
Well, the memories are crucial. They shape everything really about what I try to do these days, and just memories of the importance of family and the importance of perseverance, especially when, families are challenged. And now that I'm, able to help carry on the generations, and with my sons, my wife and me and our sons, those memories of what does it mean to be a good father, and what does it mean to be a good husband, and what does it mean to be a good son, hopefully. And there's plenty of any specific kinds of memories that go with it, but I think it all comes back to feeling very fortunate that I have a wonderful family, and now other families with my wife's family, and just and seeing my kids continuing to grow up. And my youngest son is actually a college student at Fitchburg State University. So he's part of that community. I'm a part, and he always wanted to go there. It was the only place he wanted to go. And what's interesting is both sons went, or are going to public university.
Wow.
So, they're carrying on traditions, and nothing makes me prouder than to see that. Just like I'm very proud when my students, go on and contribute in the way that they want. And you can't help it if you're a parent, at least in my case, and you see your students going out there and doing great things. Well, you feel proud, like you would a proud dad.
No, definitely. And this will lead me to this question. Which of your accomplishment are you the proudest?
Well, I gotta say, as a father, I mean that one. I know I keep coming back to family in these answers, but it's really a unique experience. And then if you have it more than once, where you see two children, your kids being born and helping raise them, and then as they grow into adults, and like all of us, when they fall down, figuratively speaking, hopefully, can they get back up? You want to help them, but you also want them to grow and experience. So I would say that's the proudest.
No. With you, that will be, and that's my case too. So I have two, a boy and the girl. So the son and the daughter. Yeah. So let's think, because you take me. That's one thing I always say. I don't know. I have a bunch of questions ready, but the guests are the one driving me to their journey. So let's say back to the future. So now you finish high school and it's time for college. What's the process look like for you?
Well, I was fortunate to be able to after high school, to be able to go to college, and I've now had a lot of education, getting from college through a Ph.D. program, because these days, you need a Ph.D. to teach at a college or university level. But I was excited to go to college because I really, for that first time, was able to move away from home, and I wanted to learn. And I didn't necessarily go to college just to get my career going. I felt it was a great journey to take, and I thought for a while that I wanted to be studying history and maybe become a history teacher. Yeah. But then I took a class in international relations, and I was always interested in the world as well as our country and history. But I was really interested in what goes on in other countries and cultures and societies, and I wanted to travel and learn about what goes on elsewhere and why it's important to us here. And so I would say the 18-month mark at college, I knew I wanted to go into political science and international relations, and I knew I wanted to work in the government. And so I figured that was a pretty good area on which I could concentrate. And I just kept going in that direction. And I feel like I got a lot out of my time in education. I met my future wife at college. It was my girlfriend, and I just, I'm still in contact with some of my closest friends from those years, which is it's almost 40 years ago.
Wow, that's impressive.
We're still in touch.
That's impressive.
I always tell my students, I said, these years go by really fast.
Really fast, yeah.
And you snap your fingers and it's over faster than you realize. And they always roll their eyes when I say that. And I'm serious. And you're typically going to meet some of your closest friends. I mean, they might be from childhood and growing up, but at college, often it's the case. If you have that opportunity, it's amazing how close you can remain with these friends. And some of them become really close. Like they could become your significant soulmate.
You're right. No, makes sense. But you said something that kind of made me to maybe ask you more about it. So you said you took one class and that was like the definite answer. So we tried to call it in you embarked in your purpose. That's my interpretation of it. But what kind of led you to say, "Oh, take that class"? So before you answer, so I have my wife. She wanted to be a psychiatrist. But she took a class in women health, and then she became a nurse practitioner. So that one class changed the whole. So what was it for you?
How did I take that class? God, I can't remember specifically. But I often would take classes because I had heard about the professors, the teachers.
Okay.
And so the reputation of this particular professor was really well known. And I'd heard about, his name, and I knew that this was an introductory class. And I mean, the subject of international relations was interesting for me as well, because I was interested in the world, even in, as young as I can remember. And so things just clicked. Like those first moments in that class, and the way that he taught the class, and this was a fairly large class. I mean, there must have been over 100 students in it. So it was a typical lecture class, and thank goodness I don't teach classes that large. I mean, I consider a class large when there's 20 students in it. And so yet I still felt connected. And what I found out was this professor was really for only a short time at our university, and yet he really influenced me greatly. And then through him, I got to know one of my many mentors, my undergraduate advisor, and he really then steered me toward, at that time, the Soviet Union still existed.
Okay.
And I actually became a Soviet studies concentrator in political science, and it's certainly an international relations subject. And so by the time of my junior year in college, I was starting to study the Soviet Union and Russian history. And eventually, just after college, I went to the USSR as an exchange student and studied Russian in the Soviet Union. That was back in 1985 in the summer. And these things changed my life. I mean, that's really where the kind of public service I went into in the government.
Wow. And this is great to hear, because now you're telling me that this is one class. So, and I hear it from multiple guests that they took one class and they were kind of flexible, and then they get to know their passion. So what is the most important lesson you have learned over your career?
Always try to help others so that they may help themselves better in whatever they want to do to succeed, or to serve larger communities, or just to find a grounding for themselves, maybe a stability if things have been uncertain. But I always tell students that, I want to help you so that you can help yourself to learn better, to reach higher, to see your hopes realized, your academic goals achieved, maybe your career paths become clearer. But that philosophy to me is always, it's always been a part of me, and I guess that's why I'm an optimist, even in the darkest of times. I've seen a lot of difficult things out there, especially from my government years. Just with how people treat each other, and how there's so much difficulty in the world, and yet I try to remain hopeful. So
Definitely. So before we take a break, I have one more question. So what is one piece of advice you will give to someone starting their career?
Remain open to all kinds of possibilities, but if you are, really intent on a certain path that you want to take, whatever that career might be, whatever, challenge you might want to try to tackle, remain determined, prepare yourself as best you can, remain open to different perspectives. But I also use a phrase which goes back to an ancient politician. I mean, from thousands of years ago, which my high school cross country and track coach always said, which is, luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Wow.
And that's a philosophy that, you can be lucky in life.
Yeah.
But typically you got to be preparing. And then the opportunities are out there. You just may not always see them. And then suddenly they're happening. But it's usually because you really worked hard to get there. And maybe it wasn't easy, but perseverance and determination helped.
Wow, well said, well said. We're going to take a quick break now with Divine Purpose Podcast. We have Josh Spero with us, a professor at Fitchburg State University in Massachusetts.
What comes before making a smart decision? Choices. A smart choice is the best option, which is who we are. That's why our clients expect more from us and, in return, get more in everything we do. We understand the problem. That's why we thrive for excellence. We don't just create a winning culture. We aspire to be a smart choice, a voice for solutions. We believe in integrity, professionalism, and teamwork. Our passion is to bring results from our clients by working harder, smarter, and faster. As a team, we always deliver because we recognize your needs. Choosing smart influences us to be the best version of ourselves. That makes us different than other companies. It makes us confident in achieving our goals. It makes us who we are. And it makes us DFM, the smart choice.
Yes, for all your property needs, call Dacius Facility Management, 617-237-0106, or go online at www.daciusfm.com, daciusfm.com. for the website. So we're back with our special guest. So now I have a quick question before break I wanted to ask you is there one thing you wish you knew before you start your career?
Again, Eddie, these are great questions. Well, I think I wish that I knew, and I don't know how I could have known that, there were going to be a lot of ups and downs, and that I was just going to have to really remain steadfast and know that, of course, I was going to have to work hard for what I wanted to achieve. That I appreciated, but that there are a lot of people out there who want to help you. Yeah. But there are also people out there who want to trip you up. Yeah. And that's just what life is often about. So the ups and downs, it's hard for anyone necessarily to prepare for that. I mean, I tell my students it's good to make, a strategic plan. But you gotta be thinking at the same time that a scenario plan might have your strategic plan falling apart. Yes. And if you can think about these things ahead of time, then maybe you can help yourself to navigate better. But the ups and downs of life, and you just never know. when that's going to happen. And, but how you prepare for that, I guess you just try to remain open-minded and you still try to remain upbeat, because even when you're down on the ground, so to speak, in whatever situations, and you couldn't have imagined how that happened. I mean, maybe you couldn't have anticipated it. Can you get back up, and how long might that take? And those are lessons you can only learn with experience.
And
that's life, and especially if there's people around you who are there to help, and sometimes not to ask any questions, just help, and that's always appreciated.
So, can you think about one of your most important mentor in your professional career?
Well, my parents are my mentors.
Oh, wow.
I keep coming back to them, and they're still my role models. I mean, I told you my mom's 85, my dad's 89, and they're still alive, and I still see them consistently, and just sharing so much with them. But when you ask a question like that, often it's in kind of either a professional journey or a career journey or an academic journey. Yeah. I've had a lot of mentors. I mean, I'm very grateful. I had any number of educational mentors, but I had mentors in the government. And I have mentors, even in my colleagues over the years. There are quite a few. I mean, my coaches in both high school and college, they're my mentors. It just as in many ways as my undergraduate and graduate school mentors. Yeah. But my first bosses, I've had a lot of bosses, and I've been on teams where there have been any number of bosses in, I guess, the chain of command. Yeah. And yet so many of them gave so much of their time and advice and help. And it made me what I am, which is, somebody who really appreciates advice, even if I don't necessarily want to hear it at the time. And it's kind of like I tell my students and my kids, if you take, I'll always be willing to give you advice. Yeah. If you take it half the time, I guess I'm doing all right there.
Oh no, that's a good way to think about it. So let's go in your first government job, and I see that you were a senior civilian strategic and scenario planner. What was it about?
A lot of words and title. And
it's a mouthful title.
Which is why I like to teach about strategic and scenario planning, which can be very intensive for my students. That was my final job in government. I actually my first real government job, kind of beyond internship level and part-time work, was actually in the Library of Congress, and which was really fascinating. And I always wanted to be a researcher and an analyst, and so I was actually working on Soviet Union related issues at the Library of Congress, but I actually ended up losing that job because of a budget cut. And actually it turned out, and I only was in that job for 8 months, and I worked with some great people, some of whom I still consider my close friends. But it was fortunate actually that I lost my job. At least the government in a lot of ways can work slowly. I knew I was going to lose my job before, at least some time before I actually lost it. So I started looking for another job, and of all places to end up, which I never would have imagined, the Pentagon. I was not a military focused person, and yet I spent about 10 years after those first several years of trying to get into government service full time, working in and around the Pentagon, and what I was able to do back in the 1990s was bring people and countries, many of whom were considered our enemies of the United States during the Cold War.
Yeah.
But when the Cold War collapsed in 1989, 1990, 91, I was really privileged to be able to work with people who brought these countries together, where we actually, so it wasn't about war, it was about having militaries actually work together with former enemies. One of those militaries was Ukraine. And, when you think about what's happening today in the world, I mean, I was working with Ukrainians back in the early 1990s. And working with what was emerging as a newly independent Ukrainian military. And you see just with the life and death struggles of a country like Ukraine right now, some of the people that I worked with 30 years ago, well, they're still they're fighting for their lives right now. And in those days, it was much more peaceful. We worked with the Russians as well as many other countries throughout Central and East Europe. And because a lot of my roots and my ancestors is from Central and Eastern Europe, and that part of Europe has had a really troubled history when you go back and look at the history, being able to work on it in the government as ultimately a strategic and scenario planner in the Joint Chiefs of Staff on the staff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the highest level of the U.S. military. And I was always a civilian, but I worked primarily with military personnel and really learned a lot from them and about the military. I mean, so much so that my oldest son went into the U.S. Army on his own decision, scared his mom and dad by doing that. But I can understand, given that he spent some of his early years in the Pentagon with me, because I would take him around. So maybe that had a bearing. But I think it was also public service, and he growing up around the dinner table.
That's a great thing, and to see the continuation of the legacy too. But let's talk about, because not every day I have somebody work at the Pentagon, so I'm definitely gonna ask some questions. What was the job interview process? I know there was security clearance people get, so can you kind of tap into the different aspect of the job interview?
Well, you've just said security clearance process, and that's typically part of a government job, and it can take months, sometimes more than a year to get those clearance, the clearance level approved, and that can be frustrating for a lot of people who want to work in the government, and it just takes a long time. So I always say apply very far in advance if you want the kinds of jobs that require clearances. I've always been very lucky, Eddie, as far as my government jobs and even my jobs at university level. I really go back to that phrase that I used when you asked me, what's an important phrase? Luck is when preparation meets opportunities. I was able to get a job in the Pentagon because, as I said a moment ago, I was losing my job in the Library of Congress through a budget cut. But fortunately, the gentleman who became my first boss in the Pentagon had worked in the Library of Congress 10 years earlier in the same department that I was in, and we had the same boss.
Okay.
So my boss, who once he heard the rumor that it was likely that the people recently hired like myself were going to be let go, he called the gentleman who became one of my great mentors and my future boss in the Pentagon, and said, we're going to lose some people. At that point in the Library of Congress, I actually had my first entry-level security clearance.
Okay.
I had waited over a year for that job.
Okay.
I applied for that job in the Library of Congress, not thinking I didn't hear for a year anything. And then suddenly, I got a call and they said, "Are you still interested in this job? Your clearance came through." And I was like, wow, I didn't even know I was still. So I had a clearance, which made going to the Pentagon a little easier.
Okay.
And so I literally went over for an interview with this gentleman based on both of us having the same boss over a 10-year difference, which is lucky, to say the least, especially if one's losing a job.
I think if I quote you right, it's preparation meet opportunity.
Absolutely, with a little luck.
Yes,
we always got to be aware that. If you can be lucky in life in those moments during great preparation, but also just the opportunities. And that interview went well, and basically my boss said, "Look, we want to hire you, and I got plenty of work for you to do. So when can you start?" And those are just wonderful words to hear. The same thing happened when I got the last job that I did in the Pentagon, which turned out I think was 7 years after that first job in the Pentagon.
Okay.
The first job, or 6 years. First job started in 1988 in the Pentagon, and then the last job I held when I worked on the Joint Staff and the Joint Chiefs of Staff was from 1994 to 2000. And I actually was working in a job where we were doing a project for the office where I ended up working. And I started working because I was the point person for the project. And I was actually located outside of the Pentagon at that stage in 1994. But they put me in charge of this project to help this office in the Joint Staff, the European and NATO Division. And I started going over there daily, and I started working. I started sitting in a cubicle over there, and I was working over there for 8-10 hours a day. And basically there was a job opening there, and I said, if I'm working these many hours over here on this project, maybe I should just apply for that job. And fortunately, they had gotten to know me from the project with this other organization that had, in a way, this contract, but they were both government agencies just working together. And I applied for that job because I found out about it sitting in that cubicle working, 8-10 hours a day. And then I got this new job, and I could work 12 to 15 hours a day in that job.
Wow.
So it teaches you a lot about fortitude, and you need to laugh a lot because the pressure,
and the intensity
is incredible. And I guess that's why a lot of students think I'm a really difficult professor because I'm a very intensive guy and I want them to do well. But I have the same mentality, which is, I want you to learn about how the real world works, and I'm going to push you hard, just like I got pushed hard, but I'm always going to respect you, and I'm always going to be open-minded and flexible. And if you can give me a really good argument, especially one that I haven't considered, I'm open to it as long as you defend your arguments with evidence and back it up, and then the ways I had to do running around the Pentagon, just trying to keep I don't know, my hair from ripping out my hair.
No, definitely. And thank you for sharing. This is great to hear, because that was like my curiosity. Wanted to really know more about your process about getting that job at the Pentagon. Let's go to hot topic. So hot topic will be one question, and I think this is gonna go in a length because it should be a loaded question. Let's go for hot topic. All right, Hot Topic is a segment where we ask questions about your field. People don't usually have a chance to ask you. Maybe your student won't ask you that question. But let's go with Hot Topic with Josh Spero. So the question is, let's say I'm like reading your mind. How would I see? Okay, I'm taking your glasses. How would I see the world? How do you see the world now?
I gotta dig deep.
Dig deep. No, definitely. Yeah, I know. That's why I'm giving you a lot of time
to read my mind. Okay.
How do, as somebody who's touched and taught international relation, politics, and work at the government, public servant, how do you see the world now?
Extremely complicated, and it's always been complicated. The world, there's so many problems, there's so much difficulty and devastation, and yet there has to be hope. And that's what I'm always thinking about. And I'm always thinking about, there may not be 100% solution to a problem, but how do we come up with problem solving? And that always comes down to decision making, which is really what I teach about and what I certainly did, when I was in government. But it's also about power. How is power used? Can it be used wisely and peacefully, not just violently and harmfully, and that's the world. The world is about power and how people treat each other. And the study of political science is the study of power, and especially how power gets used, which is about decision making. So if you try to look at my brain at any particular moment of any particular day, I'm always looking at what's the power dimension of this and this part of the world, and why is this country doing this, or how's this international organization trying to handle this issue? Why can't these people find common ground and look at compromise as the art of the possible, not somebody giving something up and somebody taking something away? Compromise should be a positive, where you got to work together and you got to find common ground. And it's really difficult, when wars are happening or pandemics are part of our lives. And what can we do, to try to understand it better?
Wow. Well said. So I don't know if you know anything about Haiti, but I'm Haitian, and
I do.
What do you how do you see Haiti? Because I'm biased. I'm will be biased, but I would like to kind of have the opportunity. It would be unfair to you, to me, to not even ask you that question as a professor and who study who's teaching political science and international relations among countries. So, what can you tell us about Haiti?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. And this is your heritage. These are your roots. And,
yes.
And I really appreciate that, because like I was saying to you a moment ago, my roots in Central East Europe, from families from over a century ago coming to the United States. My wife's family, in some respects, coming here more recently. We're all immigrants, and oftentimes we're trying to get away from difficult situations. I've had really the pleasure of having some students who are from Haiti, and they were in Haiti at really difficult times, especially was it the earthquake 2010, and exactly, and one of my really best students, she survived that earthquake, and she saw a lot of the devastation, and she was still quite young. It was before she came to the United States, and she really struggled in my classes in the early going, because I'm an intensive guy, and I really push my students hard, but she really stuck with it, and she became a really great student, and she studied in France her junior year, and she got internships where she was helping the Haitian community, not only in the Boston region, but also back home. I really appreciate not only what she taught me about Haiti in particular, just from her family's traditions and the culture and the history, but the more I've studied Haiti, the more you see just how determined through so much difficulty the Haitian people have been over the centuries. I mean, this is an independent country that's fought for not only its values and its sovereignty and its independence, but it's also freed itself from enslavement. And what's really it's sad when other countries, including the United States, haven't treated Haiti with the dignity and respect and independence it often deserves. But like we've been discussing, you got to help people so that they can help themselves better. And when you have earthquakes, and when you have hurricanes, and when you're right in the eye of so many storms, just because of the geography in the Caribbean, it's rough down there in terms of just the natural disasters that happen, let alone just trying to have governments that the people can believe in. That's one of the big part. Corruption, which is all over. And yet I always have great hope for Haiti. And the great thing is about the Haitian community up in Massachusetts, it's a strong community. Like we've had, the population's growing in the Boston and Cambridge region.
Cambridge, Malden.
Really great. A lot of our students are really first and second generation college students coming from these communities. I got a lot of Dominican Republic students. Cuban American, Haitian. You start looking at that region of the countries in that region, and just the determination of students to get the degree, especially from college, and they help their families, especially first generation students. They know this. They're going to school full time. They're usually working full time.
Yeah.
Especially at a public state university like Fitchburg State, and they're helping out families not only here but often back home, and that's the best. I mean, how can you ask more of someone? And they're usually really grounded in faith and community, religion. I should tell you that my wife is a minister.
Okay.
And so, faith is important. She's serving public communities, of the community with the congregation, and she's got a wonderful flock of in her congregation, and it's these things are important. And I know you asked about Haiti, and I hope I've given you some.
No, you definitely did a good job. Wow, this is amazing, and this is beyond what I imagined to happen in terms of where this conversation will go and the journey you took us. And I think our audience will really appreciate it. Last word for you, Josh.
Well, Eddie, I know in some of the prep for today's show, I thought I saw a question of, what question, should you have asked me?
Yes.
So I'm going to help you with that.
Thank you.
Which is, Eddie, why didn't you ask me what my last name means? I'm saying this, with some humor, because my last name means one of those words behind you, hope.
Hope. Wow.
And because Spero means hope, and you can look up the Latin phrase, which is Dum Spero Spero, and the first Spero is Spiro, which is my name, but that means Dum Spero with an I means while I breathe, and then the second Spero with an E means I hope. Wow. So that's I figured that's a nice way to end your wonderful show.
That's the best way to do it, and I really appreciate it. We should have you back because there's so much questions we should have asked you today, but with limited of time, we know you're a busy man, so definitely let us know who would you like to have as a guest. And your wife is welcome. Is she up to it? Anybody in your circle, they should be welcome if that's something they would like to do. Josh, really appreciate it, and let's keep hoping.
Let's keep hope alive and strong. Eddie, thank you for this wonderful opportunity. I appreciate it, and I look forward to staying in contact.
No, definitely. This is Eddy Dacius with Divine Purpose Podcast. We excited. This was Josh Spero, and he really went in length talking about this journey and him being a public servant. Josh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks again, and all the best.